Hey guys, I'm
And I'm
Jacqueline,
Marcella.
and we are going to talk all these spoilery thoughts of A Court of Silver Flames. It's so big. There's so much to talk about with this book, you guys.
Yes.
Oh my god.
If
It was
you have not read it yet, we're not going to talk any non-spoilers in this video because we have another video where we talk all about it, but no spoilers. So if you haven't read it and you're interested in that, go watch that video. But this video will spoil you, just so you know. Yes.
yeah, we're gonna go all out with the spoilers, you guys. So we don't want to ruin this book for you. So really don't stay and watch it if you have not read it. Or I mean, you guys really should go read it because it's amazing. And we'll go if you go watch our non-spoiler video, we kind of talk about why you should go read it. So
Yes.
yeah. Now we're going in spoilers. So goodbye if you have not read it. Right in the beginning of this book, in the prologue, we're going right back to where we were with when Nesta goes through the cauldron and becomes a high fae. And I think that's such an important scene that she kind of gave us to like recap like what exactly happened, because like we remember she goes into the cauldron, but I think seeing it again like visually, like I
Mhm.
remember like reading that and I was like, oh my god, and it just got me like so hyped up that we're finally getting her story. And
It's also such an important thing to start with and give us in the beginning because it's such like a important thing for her character, obviously, and it gets brought up a lot. That whole thing with the cauldron, like she mentally goes back there throughout the book many times.
think it was kind of the start of her trauma in a way, because we know that she had a really terrible past, like terrible relationship with her family, like her father. That's a huge part of her guilt because she feels so terrible that she had such a poor relationship with him and then he
Mm-hmm.
passed away, and everything that ended up happening in A Court of Wings and Ruin. And we get a lot of insight to her emotions, what she was feeling during those scenes, and during that scene when Cassian was like bleeding on the floor and she was helpless. You get so many important character moments like that. So yeah. Oh my god though, but in the you know how like this is totally jumping to a random scene, but like when she points to the king and it's kind of like that like death like sentence to him is the pointing. And I like
Mm-hmm.
that got brought up again. Like this is such a random part in the book. But when we see Tamlin like super quickly and she points at Tamlin, I was like, that's it. Tamlin's dying at some
Yeah,
point
this
in
seems
the future.
weird to talk about at first Tamlin in this book because he's really not in it at all. Like it's
Not
very
at
quick,
all.
but you just mentioned it, so like, yeah, like when Tamlin came in, I was just like he comes in and he like the way that they describe like she described him was that he like looked like all like run down and just like a ghost, and I'm just like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you still here?
Time did not do well for Tamlin.
No. Tamlin looked a hot mess.
I think he's the only theory that's kind of keeping him around in my mind is I think he's gonna have some relation to Gwen. There's a lot of theories circulating on like TikTok and on YouTube that people are saying that Gwen might be sister, or even like who knows, like it could even be his daughter. Like she could even be his daughter because like we don't know who her father is, and we do get Gwen's story
That would
how,
be insane.
and we know that something must have happened to her father at some point because we didn't really get anything on that. We don't know. I don't know. And like I think it's that I don't know, there's like more, if you like guys go search the internet, there's more to that theory, but it would be interesting and I think it would be a pretty cool connection and it could explain why Tamlin's still here because there's really no purpose to him. Also, another character that I don't like or trust, Lucian. I don't know if it's Lucian or Lucian. I say Lucian when I read the book, but I
Yeah,
think
I say Lucian when I read. That's how I read that, but it might be Lucian.
I don't know. But so we're just gonna call him Lucian. But that's how I've always said his name. So I think he might, I don't know, I think he might be working with our new villain. What is our new villain's name for the series? It's like Koschetti or Koshidi or something like that.
Yeah, I can't pronounce that either.
I think that he's gonna end up like doing something bad. I don't know why, and I think it's gonna have to do with Elaine, being his mate, because we know that they're mates, and we know that there's also a thing going on with Azriel, and we know that there's other things happening, other relationships that are developing, and I don't
That is
know.
the question. What is going on with the ships?
Okay, I ship obviously, like when I was reading the original, like all the other books, like even like A Court of Frost and Starlight, like all four of the books prior to this, I shipped Elaine and Azriel. Like that was my ship, and I still was shipping them in this book. Then I read the Azriel chapter. Did you read the Azriel chapter?
Mm-hmm.
That totally changed my mind,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, oh. Oh, are we gonna go here instead? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Like, will Azriel be with Gwen instead? And like, I could get on board with that because I loved Gwen so much in this book, and I think she's
I
a
feel like I loved her development too. Like,
yeah,
obviously she's not the main character, but like even like all the priestesses, like um how she Nesta wanted them to train, and she put like the bulletin up and all that, and like every day she would look at it, and I feel like every day she looked at it, like I would like feel like so upset for her because I wanted them to join and to sign up. And it took a while for Gwen to even put her name on there. But I love that. I love how she really grew into like this powerful warrior alongside Nesta.
she did. They all did. And I loved like
Yeah.
the Valkyries, like how each chapter was like novice. And then I thought it was more about like her training. And then we learned like, oh, there's this Valkyrie arch that we're going towards. And like
Hmm.
it was so cool. Like this book was such an empowering book to read. And I loved all like the messages and how important friendship was and how important um Cassian helped her get there. Cassian was so patient and he was so great with her, and he, even when she would give him shit, he would give it right back to her,
Hmm.
and he would still be there for her and understand
And
that.
he would always like believe in her too. He'd always like stand up for her, even when everybody else was like worried about Nesta and like, oh, she's hitting rock bottom, she's unstable, she's this, she's that. And he was just like, no, she would never do that. Like he would always like defend her. Like he always believed in her and like her journey. And
She was so against training. Like we see Nesta and she is at rock bottom. She is
he
drinking
had to
herself
like bargain with
crazy.
her to even get her to start training. He had to like make bets with her.
Yeah, like he knew exactly how to handle her.
Hmm.
He knew what would get her to get there. And I think having those relationships is so important. And I think there's so many great messages in this book of like, to keep going, and not only like just Nesta, but like other people too. Like I loved how like Amryn says to Cassian, I think it was Amryn that said it, keep reaching out, like keep
Hmm.
trying with her, keep trying. Like that, keep trying. And I think
That's
that
also
was,
what Cassian said to Nesta when, like, she kept checking the sign up sheet and none of
yeah,
them were signing up for the training. He was like, just keep reaching out to them.
just keep reaching out, and
Yeah.
eventually if they want to, like eventually
Hmm.
like you can get there too with that person. And
Yeah.
I think that was such an important message too. And yeah, Nessa is in such a dark, dark place in the beginning of this book, and she's so angry at so many different things. And because of she's so angry, she uses that anger and she internalized it and put it towards herself and also towards everybody else. And
Hmm.
she was also terrified of making those
Especially
connections.
Feyre.
It was, yeah. Like she was very much against even making those types of connections because she was terrified about what would happen when it all fell apart. Because she was like, I can't handle relationships. Eventually, that's gonna fall apart because I'm not a good person. And
Hmm.
that self-loathing that she felt, and it was just such an important story. And I'm so happy at the way that Sarah told the story. I think she did a really great job. And that's the part that reminded me of Aelin too, because in Air of Fire, Aelin is very broken down too. And then that's when she starts training with Rowan. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
that
very reminiscent to that.
it reminded me of that. And I think like all the training scenes were really cool too, and how like weak she was, and we had like this ongoing metaphor with with the stairs, and like her constantly trying to reach all 10,000 steps, get
Mm-hmm.
to the bottom of the House of Wind and be able to leave. And I love that. I love that so much. I thought that was so great how it was a really great representation of her progress too. Like each time she was getting there, she would
She was
get
getting a
able to
little bit farther.
a little
Yeah.
bit farther, a little bit farther, and then unfortunately we do hit that scene towards like the middle where she does hit the bottom, but not for in the right reasons. Like she was so angry and so awful at that moment, and yeah, I think we should talk about a little bit more about stuff that happened prior to that. I think it was also cool to see her powers develop in this book, like the silver flames that she has that she took from the cauldron. And how cool was that? There was like that scene when she wakes up and she's like on fire.
Oh my god, yes. I love
That
that
reminded
scene.
me of Aelin. That reminded me of Aelin too. And
Hmm.
yeah, like when she was on fire and Reese comes in through the window and is trying to like help her, and then Cassian's like
Okay,
freaking the
hold on. That scene, Cassian, hold on. I swear, when I read that scene, I thought, so that is where I really thought, like, oh my god, they're mates. Because Cassian, like, he, like, felt her or something before she woke up. Like, he, like, jumped up and then, like, heard her scream or something. Or maybe it was at the same time. But like, when I read that, I was like, oh my god, they're mates. Because he can, like, feel her or something. I was, like, freaking
yeah.
out.
Well, we do find out they are maids.
Well, yes, they are, but at that moment, you didn't know that for sure.
Yeah. Um.
Yeah, Cassian jolted awake and reached for the knife on his nightstand. He didn't know why. He had no nightmare, heard no sound. Yet terror and dread sluiced through him, ratcheting up his heartbeat. The lone siphon of his hand glowed like fresh blood, as if seeking an enemy to strike nothing, but the air had gone cold as ice. Is this the scene?
So he did wake up because he felt the terror of what was happening. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's a really good hint.
I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I read this, that's the first thing I thought of was like, oh my god, like
I didn't
he
catch that.
he woke up and he didn't know why. Like he didn't have any nightmare, any reason to wake up. He woke up and then like a paragraph later,
Yeah,
um,
that's when she screamed. And oh my god, this
like
entire
he got
scene.
out of bed with the knife and started running before he even heard her scream. Like he just knew to get like go.
Yeah,
Like he just felt like something was wrong.
that silver fire. And I think what's so telling of how powerful Nesta is how terrified Reese was. Like Reese was so scared at that moment, and like for him to be very like thrown off and taken aback, that's when I was like, oh my god,
Yeah,
like
it takes a lot to get re-scared, so when that happens, you know that it's serious.
yeah. And it turns out that what ended up happening is because we know that she's trying to find the mask. Right at this point in the story, we have like these tropes that we need to get. There's the mask, the harp, and then the crown. The crown, it's like those three, right? And so that's when she went and she was trying to find the mask, and by doing that, it like triggered something in her like subconscious, and she was able to kind of go back to that dark place that she was in. And that's when we get like the like, oh my god, like he's like, I guess, but it was different to feel it. What is her power? Azrael asked. Death, Reese whispered, hands trembling again as he got to his feet and aimed toward the window, which was now repairing itself. But he was like, he gazed at the female sleeping in the bed. Fear clouded the face of the high lord of the night court. Pure death.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. So okay, funny theory that I had when I was reading this book, when we were looking for the mask, I thought that Nesta was the mask. I was like, how cool would that be if maybe like she absorbed the power of the mask and now she is the mask that they're talking about. But like that wasn't
Find the mask.
that, and then they were like, oh no, we have a place for the mask, it's in this bogs place that was like really bad. It reminded me of what hell looks like in the Shadowhunter books. That's what it reminded me of.
Mhm.
That scene, I think that was another scene that I literally had chills reading that, when we get to this place and Azriel's wing gets shot through with like an arrow, and then we find the Autumn Court soldiers are there because that's where the soldiers were, because we were missing a portion of the soldiers, and they were there, and the arrow goes through, and then Cassian like drops off Nesta like on top of a tree and is like, "Stay here, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go help him and see what's going on here." And so he races back to Azriel, and Nesta's just on that, like on a tree, like freaking out because she's like, "Oh my god, like what if Cassian doesn't come back? What if Azriel's really hurt? Like what is going on here?" And then that's when she goes back to him, and to get to him, she has to go towards that, like through that lake. And when she goes in the lake, the nymph, the guy, the creepy skeleton looking thing, and he's got
Mhm.
like his skin is like all like peeled, and it was like super gross, comes out of the water and drags her in, and she's like fighting it, and she's like having like flashbacks to like a terrible relationship that she was in, and all of like her training like kicks into gear, and she like reaches out with her magic and she gets the mask. Oh my god, I was freaking out in that scene. I love that scene.
That was intense. Yeah, that was a great scene.
It was it was so powerful. Like it was just so many, like I had like goosebumps like reading that when she comes out, and she like, oh my god, and she comes out and they're all like freaking out that she had the mask on, and we realize like calls to like in this book, and because Nesta is from the cauldron, she was able to have that ability to reach out. And
Mhm.
obviously we totally brushed over it, but Feyre and Reese in this book, Feyre's pregnant.
Feyre's
She
pregnant, and it gave me such anxiety reading because we have um so the baby has wings, and that is an issue because of her giving birth, and like it was just so many risks, and that is very, very terrifying throughout this whole book. Just like that in the back of your head is that like Feyre can die. Like I just kept
yeah,
thinking like, oh my god, what if she dies like at the end of this book, or like
I was terrified about that. I was terrified that something was going to happen with Feyre and the baby. I was like, oh my god, like what if the baby dies? Like what if something is going
yeah.
to happen here?
And then
And
we get that whole scene with Nesta where she feels like Feyre should know the truth. And I agreed with her in that moment. I don't know if you did. Like I
I
thought that Feyre
agree with
deserved to
her,
know
yeah.
that there was a risk, like you're gonna die if this baby
I
like
thought she should have known too. I understand why they didn't tell
why
her
they
because
didn't want to like stress her out and worry her more and all of that. But then
but
Nesta, like she told her, and she didn't tell her in the best way, obviously. She just kind of like it was not a great scene. Like she was like yelling and all that, and
it was
um
a, I think it was a painful scene. I think it was like tough to read because I felt so bad for her in that moment too, because we're watching her and we're seeing how they didn't even want to tell her that she had this power and like more about her ability and stuff. They didn't want her to know how powerful she could be because of the cauldron, and they all voted, and she was so upset to find out that that Amryn voted against her, not in her favor.
that really hurt her because that was somebody who like was her friend.
I felt really bad for Nesta at that scene because that's when she internalizes all that anger and that aggression. And I think that I think Cassian mentioned that, she was probably thinking like, you know what, they didn't tell me, look, they didn't tell you something either, like we're in the same boat kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think it was some of that too, but it was a bad scene. It was really sad to see how she totally lashed out, and she kind of went back to that dark place. Um and then Cassian gets in trouble with Reese because then Reese is like, get out. Like,
That whole, oh my god, the end of that where he's like, tell her to get out
yeah, he's like,
before I kill her.
yeah, he was pissed.
Hmm.
And That's, oh my god, that's the scene that I was just like such an emotional mess during, because then Cassian knows exactly what she needs. He takes her out on a hike, and Nesta, like, I was like crying because I felt for Nesta so hard. Like, she didn't want to talk to anybody. She was just in such a dark, self-loathing place. And she's like, this is where she really, really went to a dark place where she was, honestly, she wanted to die at that point, where she felt so terrible and her guilt was right there. And she just was like, how do I even count? Like, it was just such a sad, heartbreaking scene.
Mhm.
And then when she passes out and she faints, and then Cassian helps her, and they're sitting there, and she totally breaks. And that's the moment where she really sobs over everything that happened, and her dad, where she really feels her dad's death too, and she explains it all to Cassian and how heartbroken she is. And I just love how he was there for her during that scene. I love
Mhm.
that so much.
I like the scene. I think this is like in the beginning, like when they first start really getting to know each other. I like when Cassian tells her the story of his mother and like opens up about his past like that. I thought that that was really good. That kind of was like where they started to like bond and really develop that relationship.
Yeah,
And like she was there for him in that way.
yeah.
That's when they first started training, I think.
Cassian also was someone who grew a lot in this book too, because I think he was able to sympathize so much with Nesta, and he just wanted to be there for her. And because he knew her so well, he was just able to do that. And I loved Cassian so much. Like, I remember I loved him in the all the other books, but in this one in specific, I was just like, Cassian,
Yeah.
Cassian. Like, okay, listen, you guys know we read a lot of romance, we read a lot of smut, we read a lot of that shit. But for some reason, Cassian hit differently. I don't know why, but I was like, I was
Yeah,
like,
there's
Cassian.
a lot of scenes.
Like, some of the scenes, like, I was just
And
like,
it's so perfect too because like their whole relationship, like they're trying so hard not to fall for each other, like throughout the whole like beginning of the book. Like
yeah,
even when they start like fooling around and stuff, like they kept saying like, oh, just sex, just but there's
yeah.
so much like passion behind their words that like you know that it's not gonna be like just sex. So like
It was, they literally were like, it's just sex, it's just physical, it's
as
fine.
they're like like staring at each into each other's eyes, like shut up.
I loved the house in this book. The house was so fun. How
Oh,
like
I love that too. I really want that. That was so cool.
she became friends with the house, and like the house would give her like romance books to read.
Oh,
And
I
like,
also love when she asked the house for books that Cassian would like and started reading up
yeah,
on like the training books. I thought that was cool too.
that was really cute when yeah, and I loved how the house like had baths ready for her when she had like
Mhm.
a tough day of training. And I love that the house was such a physical entity. I didn't know that I was gonna cry over a house. Like, there's that one scene when the house leads her to that part in the library that's so dark and so scary.
Mhm.
And that was the house showing her its own darkness, like its own dark heart. And I was like, oh my god, this is so emotional. Like,
Yeah, I really loved the
yeah.
house and how that incorporated into Nesta and how that fit in with the story. That was really cool.
Another thing that was so important that this story talked about was that everybody's having their own issues. Like, everybody has trauma in some way. And you can overcome that when you reach out together. You can. And I think that was so important as well. Like, we see that with Emery. I thought her story was so devastating with
Mhm.
her wings. And
Yeah.
we see that with Gwen. And when Gwen is telling them the story, like, I feel like we had, oh my gosh, like, I don't really want to, I don't want to jump to the end, but that scene when they were all on the at the blood right together, and they were all reaching to that mountain, and they were all climbing that mountain together. I think that was so chilling, and I had goosebumps reading that scene, and how they were all explaining their traumas and all of their past and everything that's happened to them. I think it was just such an important, heartfelt, broken scene, and I loved it so much.
Yeah, it definitely was powerful, them all, like, getting there, like, doing it together
Together.
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and like how Nesta really like tells them like how what terrible person she is. She's like, everybody doesn't like me, and they were kind of like, you know what, but we do. Like we are your friends, and you have that, and that there's a comfort in friendships that are like that, where you could just be totally raw. There's this one moment where Nesta is like totally like loses herself in her training, and she just keeps saying like never again would she be weak, never again would she be at someone's mercy, never again would she fail, never again, never again. And it's like this like thing that keeps just going in her head. And yeah, she's like not afraid, and she's just like never again. I love that. Like there's like this fire that was lit inside of her through these training sessions, where she was able to like physically exert herself to
Mhm.
that point of healing. And I think that's such a great thing that this book does, is it's the journey of healing. It is basically like
Yeah, definitely.
what happens, how you heal from something so traumatic, and how it's a work in progress. Like there's a lot of moments where she goes back to that place. There's a lot of dark moments, and yeah. I think that the relationship with Cassian though was definitely like a huge part of Nesta's recovery, and how great he was with her. And I love Cassian so much. Like I really liked Azriel, and I felt like she had a good friendship with Azriel too, because Azriel started joining in on the training sessions, which was really cool. Like Azriel was kind of helping train all the other priestesses that were coming.
Yeah,
And
once they all come in.
yeah, like there was this one scene that I really loved. I wrote it down. When you see like when the priestesses, when they go to the sun for the first time and they take off their hood, and it's like this moment of like facing their fear, because they were so afraid of the sun, and they have never seen the sun in like years and years and years.
Yeah, it was the first time that they were outside.
Yeah,
And like
and
they kind of just like take a moment. Like they don't even like start right away. They're just like, I need to take a moment, and they like literally just soak in the sun.
yeah, and then that's what it inspires Nesta, like seeing that, like seeing all these women take in their fear and face it head on, and do something that they were terrified of for so long, and try to go outside of their little bubble. It was inspiring for Nesta, and then that's
Oh
when
yeah.
like
I
I
feel like Nesta gets a lot of her strength throughout her relationships in this book.
yeah, by seeing, and like
With
there's an
Gwen,
empowerment.
the friends that she makes with Cassian.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Like there's like an empowerment in relatability in a way, like
Yeah.
in that like I relate to you. I'm here with you going through this journey together, and look, I'm going to face mine too, so you're not alone. Like I
Mhm.
think that there was a lot of moments like that, and that's like I thought that was such a great scene, like because there's so many moments of that, even
Yeah.
um like even when they have like a nice like sleepover, and they all make these bracelets together, like these like
Oh
friendship
yeah,
bracelets.
that was really nice.
Yeah, and then the bracelets ended up being like a huge thing, because at the end, when they end up in the blood right, they were able to find each other through the bracelets.
Hmm.
And I thought that was really cool. And you guys, my mom has been making bracelets, and I told her that she needs to make those.
That would
So
be perfect.
I told her she needs to make them. Like she literally like makes bracelets. So she's going to she's gonna make them. I told her she should. The power of the mask, and how like throughout like the beginning of the book we're searching for this mask. And I thought that what was really cool with that is it was kind of like a callback to the beginning of the series, because in A Court of Thorns and Roses they were all enchanted with masks, and they all like
Hmm.
had like a curse on all of them, because the spring court had masks on them. I don't know. I don't know if like she like meant to do that, but I thought that was a really nice callback to the original trilogy.
Oh
Like to
my,
the
I didn't even think about that until you just mentioned that. That is really cool.
that is
Yeah, I don't
cool.
know if that was on purpose, but if that was.
I don't know. It was a clever parallel,
Yeah.
the prison scene, because then we're going for the harp, and when we go to the harp,
Yes.
we go to this prison, and that was an intense scene. That's when we really see like the sword in action. And we get this background info on the world in general, and how like thousands of years ago there was peace between all the different courts, and what happened was someone was high king and ruled, and there was peace within that. I feel like the end of the series, like the end of like the total like 6 books, 6 or 7 books, whatever it's gonna be, um I think that we are gonna have a king. I don't think it's gonna be Reese, because he was very adamant about not ruling. Like he doesn't want that. But I think somebody is gonna end up being the king
Who do you
by the
think?
end of the series.
Who do you think?
What?
Who do you think it's gonna be?
I think it might be Eris, actually. I think we're gonna see him develop a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be Reese either.
I don't think it'll be Reese. He doesn't want it. He was so against it. Unless that's his evolution. Like maybe he'll want it by that point. I don't know. I'm trying to think like who it would be that would be least, that would be very unexpected. And Eris, we didn't like most of the series. And I didn't like him in this book either, really. I was like whatever with him in this book, because I knew he was our ally and it was fine. But I don't know, maybe it would be him. I didn't like, I really didn't like him when he asked for Reese for him to marry Nesta. Like, oh my
Oh my
god.
gosh, that was like the whole thing, like when she was like dancing with him and
Mhm.
then he wanted to marry her and it was
Oh my
I was so scared. I was like, "Oh no." We
god.
can't
No.
have that happen.
Oh my god. I loved how Cassie danced with her.
Oh my
Cassie
god, he
danced
got
with
so
her.
jealous. He like he like interrupted. He's just like he like comes barreling through.
He's like, I'm gonna take over here, please. And then we find out that he was getting dance lessons from Moore, like secret dance lessons, so he could dance with her and like
You
know how to
know?
do like all the dances.
That
I
was
thought
really cute.
that was so cute, and I love that. That was one of my favorite scenes. That was such a nice
Jealous
moment.
Cassian was great.
Cassian. But where he's like, I'm gonna tell you that you will get through it, that you will face all of this and you will get through it. These tears are good. These tears mean you care. I'm going to tell you that it's not too late. What you feel, this guilt and pain and self-loathing, you will get through it. Like I just love Cassian so much. And that's like the
Oh
part of the book
my god.
where I was just like crying. And he's like, there is another side, a better side. And she's like, I don't know how to get there. I don't think I'm capable of it. And he's like, you are, I've seen it. Ugh, why not apply that same bravery and loyalty to yourself? Don't say you don't deserve it. And I just like, I love Cassian so much. Everyone deserves happiness. The road there isn't easy. It's long and hard and often traveled utterly blind, but you keep going because you know the destination will be worthwhile. Like it was such a moving story. Like that's when I was just like the tears at that entire scene. I love Cassian so much.
He always like knew what to say to her.
He did. Exactly. Like he
Mhm.
just knew her so well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just he was just wonderful. And I love that he was like training, like him and Asriel were training like this like group of like these warrior women. Like that's just
Yeah.
so cool. And then like there was just such a nice development, because even when they were having those like sexual moments, I loved how there was such a difference in Sarah J. Maas's writing when they were having like these like really filthy sex scenes. Like they
Hmm.
were literally like going at it, right? Throughout
Yeah.
most of this book, they're going at it. And then we get to like this scene at Solstice. I think it was Solstice when they make love, and there was such a difference in her writing style there, because that's when they were totally raw with each other and they realized
I
they
feel like
acknowledged,
that was such a vulnerable scene.
yeah, and that's when they
I
acknowledge
feel
each
like
other.
it was less like I feel like there's scenes before that when they were having sex, it was more like desperate and like
Like in
primal
movement.
almost. And then like that was more like when they both kind of took their time and like yeah, that was a really beautiful scene with them.
Yeah, like I love that during Solstice, and I love that they gave us like a little moments of A Court of Frost and Starlight. I know a lot of people don't like that book. I really loved A Court of Frost and Starlight. I love all these books, and we got a little look at what Cassian bought Nesta that he threw in the water in that book, and it was one of the first books ever that was like an edition, like a special like edition, and he like threw it out in the water, and that broke my heart from that other book, and just to know what it was now
Yeah.
just really hurt, just to know now that's what it was that he threw away. And he gives her like the gift of music, so she's able to have music with her all the time. I thought that was so cute, like how he like because she loves music so much, and that's where her relatability, like she loves music, and how he was able to bring it with her everywhere that she goes now, that she's able to have that with her. I thought that was just really sweet, and that shows how much he knew her and he knew what she loved and stuff like that. I thought
Yeah,
that was
definitely.
seeing her relationship with everybody else was really important. I think her relationship with her sisters was a huge thing, which we really see at the end of the story. Um, and I think even her friendship with Reese and her relationship with like Amryn, like everybody, like they really went into every single relationship and how important it was. Other scene that just totally broke me was when it wasn't just like the hike scene that really got me, then the solstice scene really got me, but then we go to Starfall. I thought that this was really great. So we know throughout the whole book she wants to get down, like she wants to reach that 10,000th step. And then when she reaches it at this point in the book, she reaches it and then she smiles because she knows that she could do it, but she doesn't want to anymore. Like now she doesn't want to leave. Like she doesn't feel that need to go to the taverns and stuff like she originally did when she first got there.
Hmm.
And instead she just smiles because she acknowledges like, okay, I'm here. And then she looks up and she remembers Cassian's waiting for her up there and her life is different. And I think she realizes at that moment how much she's grown. And then she works her way back up and she just chooses to go back up the stairs at
It's
that
also it's very satisfying for like us as readers too. Because like the
yeah.
whole book you're rooting for her and then like for her to get to that moment. You
Yeah. She's like she hadn't realized that such beauty existed in the world, that she might feel so full from wonder it could hurt. Like her body couldn't contain it all, and she didn't know why she cried then, but the tears began rolling down her face. The world was beautiful and she was grateful to be in it. And that's when I was just like so emotional. Like I could literally like cry like talking about it. Like when she's like to be alive, to be here to see this, and like she laughed a sound of pure joy and she cried more because that joy was a miracle. Like that moment when she like is crying because she's so happy that she's alive and that she's able to see all the stars. I was just crying at that moment because it was such a huge scene for her to say that and be able to cry in happiness after
Mhm.
we just witnessed her cry in such grief where she didn't know, and she didn't know if she would ever get to that point because she's like, I don't know how to get there, I don't know how to get there. And yeah, and then that's when she makes peace with Amryn and they become friends again. And yeah, I just like I love that scene at Starfall. I thought that was such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it was a very powerful moment for her.
Her relationship with Cassian is at a good point. And then um she realizes like what he realized for so long. He was like, say it, just say it. You know it, just say it. Like it's okay to say it. And it's like they're mates. And oh my god, the explosion that happens in her mind about that. Like, oh my god. And then she
Like
totally
we all knew it throughout the book,
totally
but
freaks, he totally freaks out and he's like, I knew it from the moment that I first met you. I had a feeling. And then that's when she like totally like broke down and he says, oh, I didn't choose to be shackled to you. And he's like, I didn't mean it like that. That was such a bad choice of words. And at that
yeah,
point
this whole part where you are my mate, why are you still fighting it? She let the truth voiced at last wash over her. You promised me forever on solstice, he said, voice breaking. Why is one word somehow throwing you off that? Because with that one word, the last scrape of my humanity goes away. She didn't care who saw them, who heard. With that one stupid word, I am no longer human in any way. I'm one of you. Yeah.
Oh my god, but I think that this was such a good moment though for her growth because she doesn't really lash out at him like she would have if this conversation got brought up in the middle of in the beginning of the book. Like
Right.
instead, she brings in her bargain from the beginning of the book and is like, "Okay, I'm calling in my favor. I need you to go away until I talk to you." And and then that's when he was kind of like okay, like he was just so heartbroken and he leaves and he flies
And then
away.
of course she gets that's when she ends up in the blood right, which in the beginning of the book when he had mentioned the blood right, I knew it was gonna come back at some point. I was like, why is that being mentioned? Like that's gonna happen. And like it was totally Hunger Games. Like we're just in the Hunger Games arena. Um it was scary though. Like
It reminded me so much of the Hunger Games, like
yeah,
literally like
like there's just
that's what it was
you're literally just
like
running around trying to get to like the end and trying not to die and
trying to
finding your
survive
way to the top and all that. It was
literally. And I
scary
think
too
that that
because like she wasn't with her friends; they were separated at first,
got Mhm.
so she
Yeah,
has to
and
get
that's
to
what
that point
happened.
where she finds them.
And that's what happens in Catching Fire. Katniss went into the arena and Peeta wasn't there yet. Like, like
Yeah, exactly. I had war flashbacks.
mhm. Yeah, it reminded me so much of that. And it was so cool because that was such a huge part of like the Illyrians and warriors and stuff like that. And then to know like the only people who really made it at that point were either killed in the other war or it was really like Cassian, Azrael, Reese. They did it together. And I like that it paralleled. Like I felt like Emery, Gwen, and Nesta paralleled Reese, Azrael, and Cassian a lot. Like I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool. And then like oh my god, that was so awesome. Like how she was fighting all these guys in there to get to her friends and then they were climbing the mountain together. Cassian, we see that Cassian got the crown put on his head, right? Or she had the crown. She had the crown and now she was able to control Cassian, the queen, the young queen.
hmm I got so scared when that moment happened. I was like, "Oh no! Like this is
I
gonna."
had I had like six bullets
I
in
thought
the
that was gonna like end on like a cliffhanger with him being controlled and like she was gonna take him back somewhere and like we weren't gonna see Cassian.
reading it. I'm like, oh my god, there's only like 70 pages left. Like, how is this getting solved? And like 80 pages, like 60 pages. I'm like, I'm running out of
Yeah,
pages.
I was getting nervous.
I thought it was gonna end like that. I did, and I was so terrified, but it doesn't. Instead, Cassian shows up at the blood right, and they kind of fight, like, and it's so good because it's so tortured because Cassian doesn't want to be there and he doesn't want to be hurting her, but he's like being controlled and he's aware that he's being controlled, and it was just so good, and it was like he was being controlled and he was like I knew she was like I knew this would kill him to kill his mate and oh my god it was so good and then
Crazy.
but
Queen died very quickly.
I thought that was very surprising. I thought that Queen
Yeah.
was gonna stay around, so I'm very surprised about that. um yeah, I thought it was really a great scene though, and then that's when she's like you're my
And then
mate,
she's like, "You're my mate, Cassian."
and then they come down and they're like it's Feyre and then
Yeah.
you're like
And then as soon as you think that things are okay, like Queen's dead, Cassian's fine, like we're gonna just leave and everything's gonna be fine. No, Feyre's like bleeding out. She's about to die. Like, of
Feyre
course.
of course. Oh my god, I was so scared for that scene because I had no idea how they were going to.
That scene was wild. Like when Nesta like puts on the mask
Oh my god, we see her
and
with
like
all the
goes to
troves.
her.
Yeah, she calls the troves to her, and then she
hmm
uses her ability, like she freezes time, which was really really cool. How like the harp controls time,
hmm
like that. She freezes time, and she's able to save Feyre. Like she literally like lays with her and she tells her that she loves her and she tells her how sorry she is. And
That
then
was such an important. I was like waiting for that the whole book. I was like, there needs to be like a scene with Feyre because their relationship in this book, it's not obviously it's not the best, and I wanted them to get to that point where they were like they can talk or whatever. But yeah, that was a really really good scene
yeah, I was crying at that
with
scene too. I
Feyre. Yeah,
cried
that
a
was
lot
really
of times in this
emotional
book.
because wanted to get to that point for so long in the book.
I cried a lot of points in this book, but at that point I was really, and like Reese is like going insane. He's freaking out, and um yeah, I love that scene so much. I think it was such a huge moment for their relationship, and I love that she was able to save the baby, and she just gives it all back to the cauldron. Like she's like, I give it back, I give it back, and a lot of her ability is taken away, like in favor of Feyre being able to deliver the baby safely, where she was okay and so was the baby and everything was okay.
Hmm.
And but I think she still has some of her power. It's just not as all consuming. And yeah. I also love that scene when after she has that scene with Feyre and like she like brings time back to normal and Feyre is able to respond to her and they have like
Hmm.
and Reese is just like crying, and then Reese kneels to Feyre.
Oh my god.
No, he
When
kneeled to
he
Nesta.
kneels to Nesta, yeah, and it was just like,
No, and it's such a huge thing because if you remember from like the other books, like Reese always says like I would never kneel to anybody like but my crown, and then he kneels to
hmm.
Feyre, and like to Nesta, like wow, like I love
I
that.
know, to get to that point after he wanted to kill her, like throughout this book.
I'm so grateful because she saved their son. They have a boy and they name him Nix, which was really cool. I think that's a great name for the
Yeah,
baby.
that was a cool name.
That was cool. Like that worked out very well. And they have like this baby, and oh my god, like Faye said now we're parents. Like that's so exciting.
Yeah, that was really exciting.
And I love the little bonus scene that we got in the exclusive edition of them. And like we get a little glimpse of Reese's reaction to Feyre being pregnant and everything, and like all that. I thought that was really like I love that. Like I love Faye, and so like I'll take my little crumbs for them.
Yeah,
I
but
loved it. I feel like we didn't talk about every little thing because it
every
was
little thing because it's massive, but we talked about all the important things and all the things we loved.
yes. Let us know what your favorite parts were of the book. I can't pick a favorite part, but I just loved the whole entire thing and it was wonderful. And yeah, we'd love to know all of your thoughts
Yep,
and
and
all of your opinions and your theories and like
yeah, let
what
us know theories. We're very curious about that. Also let us know if you have any recommendations for other book videos that you'd like to see down below. Like we said, we're gonna get a
yeah.
book club started, so let us know if you're excited for that, if you're gonna be joining us, and yep, let us know all that down below.
Yes. Thank you for
Thanks
watching.
for watching.
Bye.
Bye.